What's your most embarrassing I thought I was alone moment? When I was 14, my parents went out for the night and left me home. I was a freshman in high school and it was right around this time that I was starting to listen to music and I was finding out what music I liked and listening to as much music as I could. During this week I was given a Jimi Hendrix Greatest Hits album by a friend from school to listen to, and I was listening to it non-stop for the entire week and would sing along and strum my air guitar to the music. Since my parents went out, they told me to order some food for myself and I settled on a large cheese pizza. I called the pizza place, ordered my pizza, and went back to my tunes while I waited for the delivery guy to come in a half hour. Before I knew it, I found myself with my Guitar Hero guitar around my neck and a tie-dye bandana on my forehead like Jimmy at Woodstock, and I was really rocking out to Voodoo Child like I was possessed. At some point after the solo in that song, I managed to open my eyes and I had a sheet scared out of me by some really tall guy with long metalhead hair and a giant beer gut in my bedroom, rocking out with his eyes closed just as hard as I was. I actually screamed like a girl when I saw him and he screamed back at me and I was freaked out. I then noticed the pizza box that he had set down on top of my dresser and managed to stop screaming. He said that he kept ringing the doorbell but I never came down to open the door, so he let himself in. He figured that I was rocking out because I had my music so loud, so he came upstairs to give me my pizza but didn't want to interrupt my jamming, so he put the pizza down for a minute and started jamming along with me. The guy started rocking out with me when he saw that I was in the zone and said that he didn't mean to scare me. We both laughed about it and I paid for my pizza before walking downstairs with the guy. Before he walked out the door, he said, "Jimmy duckin' rocks, doesn't he?" I could only say yeah. Jimmy rocks. Was walking past a car pulled up in front of a shop on the side of the road. The passenger windows were rolled down and two fluffy dogs started barking at me with those really yappy kind of barks. Anyway, I barked back at them. Just as yappy and loud. I guess this kinda confused them because they stopped barking. I barked once more to assert my dominance. Pointed my finger at them and said, "I'm watching you." Then I noticed there were people in the back seat. Awesome. Just the other day, I got really high with my brother and his wife at my house. We had a grand old time and they ended up staying the night. I woke up the next morning feeling pleasantly relaxed and, having completely forgotten that they stayed over, proceeded to take a nice refreshing bath with the door open, while singing loudly and out of key and shaving my nutsack. Somewhere in between the second chorus of "Kissed a Girl" and the completion of a perfectly smooth and delectable scrotal surface, I noticed my sister-in-law frozen in horrified bafflement in the hall. Duck. Edit. To whoever gave me gold. Thanks. I feel so sophisticated now. I was about 14 years old. Not owning a laptop, I used the home desktop to fap. Said computer was located on the main floor in the family room. To my left, through the dining room, there was a large bay window that gives a perfect view of the front yard and the walkway that leads to the door. So knowing I was home alone, I got to work. I was on a tear, choking my meat vigorously. It was Talani Barbie, if I'm not mistaken. As I'm about to orgasm, I see, out of the corner of my eye, my dad walking towards the front door through the bay window. I froze. I don't know why he was coming home, but I know that he was not supposed to be there. I was so close and so into it, my body went into some sort of autopilot and I was unable to stop. Seconds later, I finished as the front door opened. My only course of action was to flip my pen 15 into my waistband to hide the mess I had made. I was wearing a dark shirt, so I wasn't worried about the moisture being too terribly visible. I closed the porn vid and stood up to greet my father as he rounded the corner. Hands on my hips. Poker face on. I say, "What's going on, Dad?" He gives me a very concerned look. A combination of disappointment and disgust. How did he already know? I thought I had committed the perfect crime. At that moment I looked down, only to discover that my still erect pen 15 was on the outside of my shirt, totally exposed and oozing life juice. I was absolutely mortified and just ran down to the basement. It has never been brought up. TLDR. I jacked off and my dad caught me while I was basically still coming. Edit. A couple of words. Edit 2. Thank you for the gold. Edit 3. If anyone is interested. I have an equally embarrassing story of catching my dad in a similar situation. I talk to myself when I'm alone. All the time. Anywhere I happen to be alone. This includes when I'm working. So one time I'm stocking candy at work. And I just bust out singing. And I turn around and there's this poor customer looking at me trying not to laugh. I felt myself turn bright red. But I laughed awkwardly and said, "Sorry." He says, "No man. It's alright. I do it too." I had just finished watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. The whole series one summer and was cleaning the house when the head of my broom fell off. Naturally. It resembling a staff, I went to my backyard and began to spin it around and play with the staff for a bit. Around 5 minutes went by and I look up and notice my neighbor watching from his window. I was 20 at the time. My wife and I were having sex and my best friend called. It was right when I first got a smartphone. So I wasn't 100% on how to reject calls. Well, I didn't hit the right button. We continued having sex for at least a few minutes before I heard my buddy's voice say, "Are you guys having sex?" We started at each other and burst out laughing because it was right in the middle of dirty talk. I had just taken a shower and had gotten out when my dog came in and started running around wanting to play. I ended up chasing him out of the bathroom while nude and he led my ride to my sister, who had stayed homesick. Needless to say, she was curious why I was chasing our dog around while naked. I studied abroad in Germany. Now a nice thing about Germany is that you can drink outside. And nobody cares. It's just fine. So, when I first arrived all fresh-faced and stupid from America, and my German friends invited me to go drinking at a festival on the river, well, I was there. So, as things often go, when you've been drinking for a while, you need to pee. And I am no exception to the rule. Yet somehow, and this is really beyond me, there was no provision for this basic human need at this whole big festival. But I was in my cups. So, no problem. I'll just go in a bush or something. Granted, I was wearing pretty tight jeans. And when you're a girl, that means that peeing outside is sort of challenging. But hey, I was up for anything. So I go behind my bush, ducking from the well-lit street fair to the pitch blackness of the park. And I perform what is just a spectacular acrobatic maneuver. Pants around ankles. Bracing myself on 2 different trees to avoid peeing on my pants. I heave this big enormous sigh of satisfaction as I begin struggling my way back into said pants. My night vision slowly creeps back. And I realize that I am not the only person to pee behind this bush. There are at least 20 people peeing behind this bush. And what is worse, this seems to somehow be the men's bush. Exclusively. 20 men. Dongs in hand. Just a staring. I may be late to the party, but this story is perfect for this thread. Not me, but my father. Him and my mother were grocery shopping when my dad suddenly had to let one rip. After turning down an island assuming it was just him and my mother behind him, he lets out the biggest, raunchiest fart. My dad's farts are legendary in my family. He lets out a woo and turns around to my mom saying, "How did you like that one, honey?" Except it was not my mom. It was a grocery store employee. My dad said he's never seen such sheer horror on a face like that, guys. Reverse situation. I was sick, so stayed home from school. My sister thought I was gone and masturbated in the shower next to my room. Loudly. Fapping in the service elevator at the mall. Voice from above says, "Put it away, Pee-wee." I obeyed. And left the mall. Jerking it to that scene in Titanic when I was about 14. Older brother walks in. Oh. Good scene. isn't it? While I was in grad school I lived in a basement apartment of a pretty big building. Right next door to me was a pretty small laundry room. A couple washers and dryers. Normally it wasn't a problem. But this one washer decided that on this day it was going to be particularly loud and was slamming around, and it sounded like the world was ending inside my apartment. I was studying for finals and trying to concentrate. So all the noise was just a nightmare and I couldn't get anything done. In a moment of complete exasperation I ran out into the hallway in my boxers and a t-shirt and into the laundry room. I lunged at the offending machine like it was a mugger trying to rob my grandma. I shook it violently and screamed at it, "Shut up you damn washer. Don't you know I have finals this week?" I unplugged it and plugged it back in. And I talked at it like a psychotic person. I control whether you live or die. Goddamn washer. Can't get anything done. Around then I realized that I should probably not be doing this with other people living down the hall. So I decided to run back into my apartment. And then I turned around. And there was this beautiful, college-aged woman who lived in my apartment building. Standing there. Staring at me. Petrified. She just held her detergent and roll of quarters quietly. Eyes bulging. She nodded politely when I stammered about how I'm studying for finals. It was being loud. About a week later I walked by a woman and her friend on the street and I heard her whisper, "Oh my god. It's that guy. The guy from the laundry room I told you about." I once thought I could totally take off my pants with my teeth, so I tried. Doing this sort of trying to suck your own big dig, lean forward and bit on the crotch of my pants. I started pulling and I did get some progress. Then I thought, wait. If I could do this, could I suck my own big dig? So I started trying and even got my tongue on the tip. Then I noticed my door was open and my stepbrother was watching me this whole time. Beginning to end. He started laughing then walked away. I never said a word to him for 2 months out of embarrassment. I've mentioned it before. But when I was in year 5, I was waiting for some food in the microwave to heat up and beside me were some chicken thighs my mum left out to defrost the night before. I started getting freaky with the thighs and groping them and making moaning sounds while gyrating my hips. My mum walked in and asked WTF I was doing. God. I cringe just thinking about it now. I wonder if she remembers equals. Update. Okay. I get it. She and Pepperidge Farm remember. Singing Bodies by Drowning Pool at work while cleaning. Then I turned around and saw a customer. I swear she must have levitated into the shop. Because she didn't make a noise coming in. Realized that my building had security cams in the elevators after 2 years living there. And that concierge actually watched them. And the poor bastards have been subjected to my riding solo dance parties for months. Christ. Thanks for the gold, Reddit. I will never stop dancing. A couple of days ago. My roommate has a cat. It greets me every time I come in. So like a lunatic I have a conversation with it. Me. Hey kitty. Me. Meow. Me. How was your day kitty? Me. Meow meow meow. Didn't realize her boyfriend was in her room. Staring at me through the crack of the door. I'm also a 6'4" quiet brown man. I was at an IHOP with some friends and had received a serious wedgie upon sliding into my booth. The longer I sat there the worse it got, so by the time we finished eating I was ready to fix the problem, so I stepped out the front door and stepped around the side wall of the little entryway to pick it. And since no one was driving through the parking lot I figured I was safe but didn't want anyone sneaking up, so I kept my back to the wall. I was digging. Hand down the back of my pants. Yanking out the offending cloth when one of my friends walked around the corner and immediately started laughing at me and pointing. It took me a second to figure out she wasn't laughing at me but the poor family having breakfast behind the plate glass window that was looking at me in horror. In fact, the whole front of the restaurant is like a giant window. Edit. Wow. I didn't expect such a great response and so many wonderful and funny comments. You guys are hilarious and thanks for all the wedgie support. I was staying at a nice hotel. The Empire Inland in North Wales, while travelling for work. They had a great pool. I went in there one morning and I was the only one there. I started messing about, recreating the opening scene of Jaws where the girl realizes that her leg has been bitten off. Then lots of splashing like the shark had come back for the second go. Then I tried a bit of synchro, kicking my legs up in various shapes. Then I did a bit of goalkeeper practice by throwing my goggles and diving to catch them. Then I saw a window overlooking the pool and a family of 6 people eating breakfast and watching me. I'm a 51-year-old man. Going in the stock room at work to fart, only to have a female co-worker stocking the shelves behind the door. My parents hired someone to fix the master bathroom, my bathroom. Not knowing this, I put my headphones in and started practicing my dance routines for school. Some of the moves were really crazy. I finished my first routine and the guy was standing at my door just laughing. I was pretty embarrassed. My boyfriend and I were having very loud, very vigorous sex while my sister was at work. Halfway through it I hear a door slam and someone yell, "Jesus Christ." We didn't stop. Not really, or I thought I was alone, but more like I thought you were asleep. When I was in 8th grade I went to a scout camp with a few of my friends who were also scouts. One of the nights we were talking before we went to sleep and we had a long conversation. Eventually the conversation died down and we all began to go to sleep. About 30 minutes after the last words were said I hear a sound. A strange sound. It sounded like someone was masturbating. I looked over to where the sound was coming from and one of my friends was sitting there masturbating. Me and the other friend in the tent. There were 3 of us in there. Both were like, "Dude, what the hell?" And all he could say was, "I thought you were asleep." Mind you, we were 12-13 years old and this was a religious scented scout camp, so this was probably a bit more controversial than usual. It was a funny memory though. Kind of gross. About a month later I walked in on the kid ducking a peach in his room. He was a strange one. That first day I owned L4D2. I played it literally all day, with my parents supposedly out of town till midnight. The thing is, they came home early and surprised me with cookies from the mall or something. So I, having my earphones on, couldn't hear their footsteps or calls for welcome. They then proceeded to stand in my doorway watching me dismember zombies left and right with a chainsaw until my mother fled crying. My parents are independent fundamental Baptists. Guys. TLDR, my brother ate my cookies. I was working on a project at work one day and ended up staying way late, so I ordered some Indian food and whatnot so I could get out as soon as possible. Normally my building clears out around 5:30 to 6 PM. And I was there till about 10 on this one particular evening. On my way out, I jumped into the 14th floor elevator, slowest elevator in the world, and it started to descend. Thinking I'm the only one who could possibly be in this building at this time. And I ripped a big nasty Indian food fart. Just as I finished, the elevator stopped and 3 models from the modeling agency on the 13th floor got in. I started to panic since the smell had not risen to nose level yet and almost just got off on their floor. But they were obviously the last ones out of their office. So that was just kind of awkward. As the door shuts and we start to descend, I'm staring down at my phone and just waiting for the inevitable. The girls were giggling and talking about what they were going to do for the weekend, and then all of a sudden, silence. At this point I was wildly laughing in my head and wanting to curl up and hide all at the same time. I was staring down at my phone hunching, hoping that they wouldn't be able to see my face. While we made the trip down the next 12 floors, which seemed like hours. TLDR. Farted in an elevator and models got in. I was rapping some Beastie Boys and feeling like a badass. Until I hear from the bathroom, "Hey Mike D. grab me some toilet paper." Apparently my dad came home without me knowing. Took a while to live that one down. Well, the pie guy won the thread, but I will tell my mildly amusing story. Long ago I lived in a big house with several people. College roomies. Everyone was in their rooms and I was alone in the living room. I am flicking through the TV and I land on an episode of Friends. Joey and Monica are talking or something and then Ross walks in. For some unexplainable reason I just glared at the TV with a venomous look and with a growling sort of whisper I said Schwimmer. This is the last name of the actor. David Schwimmer. Who plays Ross, at some point. My boyfriend had come out of his room and was behind me and just busted out laughing at me. I was so embarrassed because I had no explanation for it. I have nothing against David Schwimmer. And I have no idea why I said that. But to this day when I think of Friends, I laugh hard about it. I was doing this self-help wackadoo hypnosis thing to lose weight and part of it involved reciting affirmations to yourself. I am strong. I can be thin. etc. I was in the men's room at my office, which had separate areas for the sinks and stalls urinals. In front of the mirror doing my thing for several minutes, when suddenly there was a flush and my coworker walked out looking kind of sheepish. He walked out without acknowledging me and we never spoke of it. I tried kissing Leonardo DiCaprio on the TV screen when I was younger. Didn't realize my brother had walked down the stairs. Wasn't that embarrassed cause it's Leo. A few years back I was trying to get with this girl. She was way out of my league. 9/10. But she was a friend's sister and was pretty into me. So I had invited her sister, and a few of her friends over for a party. Things were going great until a dude and his girlfriend wound up passing out in my bed. I was bummed to say the least, but the girl snuck into my room and stole my comforter and pillows from them and was like, let's just sleep on the floor in the living room. Score. Things were awesome as everyone else filtered into the other bedrooms or went home. We made out all night. But that was about it. We eventually passed out spooning. Now comes the good part. Earlier that night I had heard her and her sister talking about having to go to church in the morning. Her sister was dating my housemate at the time, so the next morning I woke up, seemingly by myself, to hear them talking about leaving. I was still pretty woozy from drinking the night before and didn't hear all of the conversation. But I thought that when I heard the door close that they both had left. Almost immediately after the door shut, I let out one of the single biggest farts I have ever let fly in my 27 years of existence. I'm talking about one of those whiskey fueled farts that leaps out of your ass with the Tyrannosaurus-esque roar. If you would have had a slow-mo camera pointed at my eyes you could have seen the shockwave style fart. Little did I know that the object of my affection was still lying next to me and wide awake, and I didn't find this fact out until later that day when her sister called me to ask if I had sheet myself. I was mortified. And, needless to say, things didn't go too well between us after that morning. TLDR, I let out a whiskey fueled explosion right next to my crush after I thought she had left my house. I was laying on the couch watching TV like a fatus when I was 13. Well, I got the urge to be sexy. So I stood up, dipped my ass to the floor and slowly raised myself with my ass sticking out as sexy as I could do it. I didn't know my brother was sitting on the other couch where I didn't see him or hear him. He called me a hoe. Grade 7-8. I was walking to school. I think it was a Friday or one of those days where you know you're not gonna work and watch movies all day. I loudly said, this is gonna be a great day, with a corny voice. There was some random guy right beside me smiling and trying not to laugh. All I could think of is, well, duck.